Hi, I'm John Red. This is Crash Course AP Euro, and today we're going to talk about the USSR. The Union of Soviet Socialist Republics developed into one of the great world powers of the 20th century, and represented the first relatively successful communist state in history. In less than 20 years, it grew from a few scattered Russian workers' unions to the largest state in the world. It completely revolutionized Eastern Europe and turned the backward region into an economic powerhouse. Mr. Red, didn't it also end over 20 million lives and destroy basic human rights and civil liberties? Hey, give some, take some. That's something you don't understand. The USSR has its roots in the Russian revolutions, the original communist uprisings that brought about the end of Russian tsardom. The oppressive nature of the old regime and absolute monarchs, horrible living conditions as the Industrial Revolution spread to Russia, and defeat in the Russo-Japanese Wars all had the Russian citizens extremely angry at the government, and the Tsar no longer looked like the god he was supposed to be. At the same time, our old friend Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto was spreading across Europe. When World War II hit and Russia's population and land were devastated, it brought all these issues bubbling over. Imagine being hit with the first week of Euro over and over again for years. Wouldn't you turn to socialism too?
So let's begin with the March Revolution of 1917. The Russians were extremely unhappy with their government in improving the standard of living, leading to the revolution, in which the Russian monarch completely lost all power and the Duma and Alexander Kerensky rose to power and declared themselves to be the new provisional government. This new provisional government was extremely ineffective because A, it kept Russia in World War I, and B, it failed to bring about any new reforms for the peasants. Obviously, people were not too thrilled, and well, the answer is always to move further left. Russia ended up with two competing rival factions, the Liberal Provisional Government and the Socialist Petrograd Soviet. The Petrograd Soviet was comprised of two groups, the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks, and the Bolsheviks ultimately defeated the provisional government in the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, also known as the October Revolution. Exactly how were the Bolsheviks so successful in defeating the provisional government, you ask? Two words: Vladimir Lenin.
Lenin's political views were a little different than those of Karl Marx's. The main difference between Marxism and Leninism is the fact that Lenin believed that a violent revolution must be led by a small group of dedicated elite party members, aka the Bolsheviks. The evolutionary socialist Mensheviks, who believed that compromise rather than violent revolution was the means to change, were obviously not too thrilled by this. Lenin's views are represented well in one of his speeches, in which he said, "It is the duty of the revolution to put an end to compromise, and to put an end to compromise means taking the path of socialist revolution." Lenin was extremely adamant in violent revolt and absolute radical socialism.
Lenin believed that a spontaneous, violent proletarian revolution should extend to the peasants and a vanguard party should lead it. He campaigned for the Petrograd Soviet with the slogan "Peace, Land, and Bread" that appealed to the people. Lenin soon became a popular figure among the Russian citizens, leading to the Bolshevik success in defeating the provisional government in the October Revolution, ultimately creating the USSR. Lenin, as temporary head of the Soviets, established many immediate reforms, which included taking Russia out of World War I with the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk and allowing peasants to take land. While the people were happy with Lenin's positive reforms, the conservatives who remained were not. A civil war broke out in 1918 between these two groups, specifically the Communist Red Army and the Conservative White Army. The Red Army was victorious in the Russian Civil War that lasted from 1918 to 1922, mainly because of the White Army's disorganization and Leon Trotsky, Lenin's right-hand man, and his expertise in all things military, though his expertise in hair was clearly lacking. After his victory, Lenin officially created the USSR.
The USSR was a collective state built on all of the small Soviets across Russia, uniting all these limited self-governments under the communist leadership in Moscow. With control in the hands of the communists, Lenin started his reform in Russia, starting with the new economic plan. After the Russian Civil War, Russia's economy was in complete shambles. With the new economic plan, Lenin made a couple of big changes. The NEP was primarily an agricultural policy. Lenin sought to help the peasants and gain their support by handing over much of the agricultural business to them and giving the authority over small industries and retail markets. However, the Russian government would still maintain control over heavy industries, banking, transport, and foreign trade. With the NEP, Russian economy returned to its pre-1914 level and gave the Communist Party to take things slowly a little bit. Everything was well until Lenin fell extremely ill in 1922. He remained on his deathbed for about 2 years before finally passing away. The two men that emerged as the new leaders of the party were Leon Trotsky and Joseph Stalin. Now, Leon Trotsky, being the war hero during the Bolshevik Revolution, had the support of the military and the majority of the population. However, Stalin had the support from the Communist Party. Unfortunately for Trotsky, having majority of the population's vote didn't really matter, as Stalin completely edged out Trotsky as the next premier or the leader of the Communist Party. Stalin would later exile Trotsky, and he would be found guilty of treason when Stalin was ruthlessly killing the people during his purge of the political foes. He would be killed by a Soviet assassin in 1940. Rest in peace, Trotsky.
Now let's talk about Stalin, aka what we all did to prep for the AP test. Stalin saved the nation and killed the people of Russia, but in the process, he managed to do what no other ruler had ever done before: industrialize the nation. Stalin was notorious for his strict totalitarian rule, under which personal freedoms, privacy, and the worth of the individual were all sacrificed for the success of the country. As he stated, "True courage consists in being strong enough to master and overcome oneself, and subordinate one's will to the will of the collective, the will of the higher party body." Sounds like a Star Trek episode, doesn't it? He infused within the people of Russia a sense of devotion to the nation and to himself. Stalin also realized that the efficiency of total war could be perpetually harnessed to unite the people against a common enemy and in pursuit of a common ideology. And unity would come at the cost of brainwashing and fear. Stalin couldn't care less about quality of life and personal freedoms if they got in the way of the needs of the nation. As exemplified in his address to the Red Army Academy graduates, "We must finally understand that all of the precious capital in the world, the most precious capital, the most decisive capital, is human beings. Cadres decide everything." Referring to humans as capital, Stalin infers that humans are mere expendable resources, existing to serve the sole purpose of improving the state. Heavy industry was perpetuated at the cost of consumer goods. Toilet paper, pens, these basic necessities that we need to survive were being withheld from the people. The mindset of total war forced people to work long and demanding days for goals that weren't even possible. After all, that was the only use of people in the society. In addition, taxes redirected most of what the people did make back to the government. And finally, even the government knew that people needed a coping mechanism just to deal with the emotional stress of daily life. So they gave the people vodka. It's communism. In terms of freedom, people were told where to live and where to work. Peasants had their land revoked, and the government controlled your everyday life. Police terror and wiretapping established a society of fear and kept people in check even in private. And modern technology made that all possible. Stalin also utilized religious persecution. Although atheism was the official religion of the state, Stalin was God, and the true religion was Marxism-Leninism. The people were also bombarded with propaganda through radio shows and posters, and children were indoctrinated from youth with the educational program and youth groups.
And now let's go to the thought bubble. Stalin was able to completely control the population, not just through indoctrination, but through fear. He allowed absolutely no opposition, or even rumors of it. He killed up to 20 million peasants just for refusing to work.
I hate Russia. I hate Stalin. I don't want to work anymore.
Me too!
He did not just kill people, but erased them from existence. He often removed political rivals from photos to make it look like they never even existed. Stalin himself said, "Death is the solution to all problems. No man, no problem." He certainly stayed true to his word. By destroying the fact that opposition ever existed, he prevented any resistance movements from forming. He dictated every part of people's public and private lives. It was true totalitarianism for the first time in history. Thanks, Stoppable.
Stalin was clearly a... Miss Green, that sounds like 1984. We just wrote 15 essays on that. Thank you, younger me, but we're talking about history here, not English. But Mr. V said... Anyways, Stalin was clearly a horrible man. If only I could have a moment to speak with my old friend Joe. Oh, that's right, I sent him a letter last week. He sent it back. In pieces. Well, let's read it anyway. Dear Joseph Stalin, why do you have to be such a horrible person? I respect my fellow communists for their belief in equality and feminism and helping the poor, but you're just evil, man. How could you have taken the good name of communism and dragged it through the mud with such disregard for human rights? Honestly, Joe, I expected so much more of you. You can't just ship off everyone who disagrees with you to prison camps. And you wonder why you don't have any friends. You know, I bet America and Britain would like you a lot more if you just tried to be a decent guy. Communism is meant to be paradise, but not the USSR. Come on, man. Just give the people some bread or butter or decent pens every once in a while. I mean, look at the suffering you're putting them through. Why in the world you want to spread this to the world is beyond me. There's more to life than power, you know. Take a nice, relaxing European history class sometimes. It ought to open your eyes. Sincerely, Comrade Jackie Green. Ah, Stalin. Despite all of that, he did succeed in doing the impossible and modernizing Russia. They were horrific methods, but his 5-year plans and totalitarian rule were incredibly successful in industrializing the country. Russia accomplished in 10 years what it had taken the rest of Europe 50 to 100 years to do, and this gave it a pivotal role in World War II. Immediately leading up to World War II, Russia's advanced industrialization allowed it to militarize rapidly. And here's a quick summary of World War II, in case you were wondering. After the USSR, stabbed the Allies in the back and made a non-aggression pact with Hitler, they were stabbed in the back by Germany, who barely hesitated before taking back the land which Russia had earned during the war. So Russia stood up and said, we're going to stab you back in the back, Germany, and they made an alliance with the Allied powers. But you would have thought that, after all this time, Russia would have learned to stop backstabbing people, but no, they turned to the Allies and they stabbed them in the back by saying, to heck with democracy, and they turned the East all communist. Sorry, Marx, you get the idea, a lot of backstabbing. So, in some kind of conclusion, Russia began as a nation hundreds of years behind the time. But the chaotic Russian revolutions jump-started the USSR into growing up to be a major player in World War II and the world as a whole. Lenin and Stalin were the fathers of this time, and they guided the country, rather aggressively, towards this incredible goal. Although this progression came at the cost of millions of lives, you can't deny that the methods used by these leaders were incredibly successful in modernizing Great Mother Russia. Communism.